Austin, where are we?
We are in our brand new studio.
Which feels incredible to say because I think, and now I'm like super self-conscious as we get started. I had a protein ball before we got it, so I think I have flaxseed in my tea. Aside from that lack of professionalism, professionally, what are we trying to do with this space?
I don't think we know exactly what we're going to do.
Yeah.
I think it's just been a childhood dream from any creator to have a space that they can call theirs, and there's really no agenda. We get to do whatever we want with it. So I think that's the special thing. It's like, I think we want to build a place that people want to come to because they want to be around whatever is in here, you know?
Yeah, so I think that's what's interesting to me is like the power of, so working together, so finish that thought, but then like the second thing would be, I think it's the power of like thinking back to the pandemic, right? And then how work changed and so many people transitioned careers and got into like, you know, they're like our creative professional careers took off, I think, during that time. Is that about the right time for you? And so then kind of a weird side effect of that was working from our homes, right? So like we work with clients, we work with people, but then like we don't really have like coworkers.
Yeah.
And I think the hard part about that for me has been losing like that. I don't know, there's something about like bringing two like or more people together that feels like creativity, if that makes sense at all.
And I think we start from the beginning. If you're someone who's not, you have no idea who we are, which there's maybe a few of you, probably so. So my name is Austin.
My name is Caleb.
We have our own respective brands, businesses on the side, and we've gotten to know each other over the last few years. Do we want to go into a little bit about what we do specifically for
I think so. That's
people
fine.
who don't know?
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Okay, so I run a strategic communications firm, which just basically means I have clients, they're typically on like long-term contracts, and we help connect them with their audiences. And so that might be through building websites. We published a documentary last year, which you don't know this yet. I received in the mail last night notification that I'm now a Kentucky Colonel.
Wow.
So in part due to that work. So yeah, it's like super fun, helping connect clients with their customers or their audiences. So, yeah.
And then I have a business that solely based on videography. I love connecting with businesses, with people. I love telling stories. I love being on the other side of the camera and telling that story. So this is really weird for me to be on this side of the camera.
It should be illegal to be as good at your job as you are.
No.
Every time I feel like the grandpa on Instagram, because every time he posts an Instagram story, I'm just like liking all of them because they're so good. But yeah, I think that's who we are. But then I think it would be interesting to talk about like, okay, so what's the vision? So if we have our own successful professional careers, then why do we feel the need to not like have our own individual spaces?
Yeah. I think, and I'll talk specifically to like another creator in this moment. Like if you're a creator, as we are, there's this mental burnout almost, this creative burnout of not just doing like your thing, but being on your own and not having a sense of like community is pretty much what it is. And I think what we developed over the last like year or two is a little community just between you and I every time we talked. And what came of it was like every time me and you had a conversation, something good would come out of the conversation. And so it slowly progressed into this thing. It's like, what if we had those conversations daily or weekly in the same space? Yes, we can kind of work on things together, but we can also just do our own thing. And I think that is what has birthed this studio. And what's kind of, if you're wondering like why it's very, like there's things in the background, is because this is like the first moment we are in our studio for the first time.
Yeah, like the keys are over here that we got today.
Just got them.
And I think what's cool about this that I'm excited about is, so you have, how old is Ivy?
4 months.
4 months.
Yes.
And then I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old who'll be 5 in a couple weeks. And like when I think about them, all I can think about is I wish I could see or hear the story of my grandfather, who was an entrepreneur in this town, like started up a business, was involved in the school board, like served, people in the community, and what I would give
Yeah.
to hear and watch that story.
Yeah.
So like even if like 2 people watch this, it's fine
We have it.
because we have it.
Yeah.
And this is documenting literally wherever this goes.
Yeah.
We're here for the adventure.
If you could have told me when I was 15 that I would have my own studio, that I would get to tell my story of my studio just for myself, not for if anybody else wants to watch, that's great. But we have this, and we get to tell this story of how we're going to create this dream studio of ours over the next few weeks and months, years, and we just get to see what comes of it, and we're going to video ourselves doing it. That's pretty much, and we just get to talk about what's going on in our life week to week, like on the podcast. It's just us talking, really.
100%.
Yeah.
And I started laughing there towards the end because it just occurred to me. So we've been toying around with the idea. I think we've settled. I think is it okay to say we've settled on a name?
Yes.
So the Archive, and so we're going to call this place the Archive Studio. But what just hit me about what you were saying is when you were 15, if you would have been told, to be able to tell your story, that's kind of what this podcast is. It is quite literally an archive.
Yeah.
Of our journey moving forward.
Yeah.
It's a lot of layers there. It's like blowing my mind.
The Archive podcast.
Yeah.
And I'll let you, why we settled on the name The Archive, because this has more rich history from your upbringing more so than mine.
Yeah, so this room right here is the second floor of the old public library here in Hodgenville, Kentucky. And so I grew up coming to this library. I lived 3 blocks that way. So would walk here during the summers like it is right now, super hot, but would just love coming here. And it still smells the same for anybody else who was in here at one time. It's just the smell of old books. And so I think the beauty of this place is it has been a place of knowledge and storytelling. And I'm kind of getting goosebumps because we're just continuing what this place has always been.
Yeah.
In fact, I feel almost we're stewards of the history of this building.
Yeah.
It once held stories on the bookshelves, and now we get to tell other people's stories from this place still. And so that's why it's called the Archive.
And that's why there's the mural in the back.
Yeah, and there's a mural there. There's the best one though is in the stairwell.
Yeah.
But I think what I love, this is what I would say is, when I think about places that should tell the stories, these are those places. Libraries are rich and have been through history for a lot of reasons, but it's because stories, there's an element of sacredness to them.
Yeah.
No matter your creed, where you're from, socioeconomic, doesn't matter. Stories are part of who we are as human.
And I think that's why we settled on the Archive. The moment we both heard it, it was yeah, that makes sense. And what we want out of this place more than anything is just a bunch of stories that we're able to tell, sitting here together week to week talking, or bringing people in for an event, or bringing people in for production, or just working in this space. We have 1,000 square feet to do whatever we want with. And I will not let a day go by that I'm not grateful just for the opportunity. You know what I mean?
And I'll be honest with you, part of my motivation is selfish. I have 2 tiny people at home right now who are on summer break.
Yeah.
And even if I lock the door and put noise canceling headphones on, Bose headphones are good, but they're not that good.
Right.
But yeah, man, I think it's exciting. This is the moment where I think about what does a year from now look like? What does 3 months from now look like? What does 5 years from now look like?
Yeah.
And I think about where the last 4 years this month have brought me. And it's man, what's going to happen now?
Yeah.
It's a force multiplier bringing us 2 in the same space together.
Yeah.
So okay, if we were to land this plane, are you okay to do that? Mm-hmm. What would be your encouragement to a creator right now who is where maybe we just were? So we were just in the phase where we were working by ourselves at home.
Yeah.
That kind of deal, grinding it out.
Well, I think right now it's very popular to be the creative person. It's very popular to have the camera, take the photos, do the video. And what a lot of people want to do is skip that step 1, that step 2, that step 3. And those were steps we had to endure. You have a job, you may not love the job, and you're getting creatively burnt out because you're doing creative things for a company when you really could be doing them for yourself. But you kind of got to go through that step because you've not earned anything and you are not built up in the wisdom or the clientele or the knowledge of owning a business. I think you got to go through the hard process right now and kind of build up that reputation. Like, this is what I do, and I'm going to get really good at it over the next span of like 2 to 3 years. And I'm going to have some like jobs or days that I don't love because I'm kind of a little burnt out. But that's what you got to do. And then maybe you're to the step where I'm on my own and I want to see something else happen. Like I'm kind of doing, I'm doing freelance and I'm getting by and I'm getting by and I'm getting by, and you want to see something grow from that. Here's what my number one encouragement would be for you. I think you find a community of people you can work together with, because what we do in this space is try to beat out the person we're competing against. And that would have been really easy for you and I. This is
100%.
A small town in Kentucky.
Absolutely.
And when we first met, we both did the same type of stuff.
Yep.
And it was like, okay, this is my competition. But what if it was just my teammate instead?
That's it, man.
And so
That's
that's my number one encouragement is like, don't feel like you got to compete against everybody. How can you work together?
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, there's enough work for all of us. And that's what people don't realize is like the work, especially now in the year 2024, people want things to be created by people. So work together. Don't work against the people who can make you stronger, like in an area you're weak. So,
dude, I would just piggyback off that 100%. I still remember when I first saw your stuff, the insecurity that came up in me was like, dude, he is so good at this. And I just remembered advice I heard once from, I was watching an Instagram video like years ago, and it was Robert Downey Jr. talking about when he went through this journey of transformation. Someone told him, like, bro, you just got to hug the cactus. Like at a certain point, like go towards the very thing that makes you feel like you want to recoil from it. And so I remember texting you and asking you to coffee because I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing the whole competition thing. Yeah. And it has proved to not only be like friendship and like we've worked together, but also it's one of those things where it's like, no, let's just redefine this. I am not competing against another person. I'm competing against me. Yeah. And so what happens if the way that I get better is because the two of us encourage each other and all of our creative sparks are flying off, and it's like two flames coming together, man. You get gassed up and you go. And so I think that would be my encouragement is the biggest thing that can sabotage a young creative is their ego. Yeah. Like that ego, man, all an ego was good for is like you get super insecure and then you get defensive and then you lose clients. Yeah. But if you can walk the road of humility and you can join up and like get all of that creative effort together, success is nothing but on the horizon. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's it. And what's to expect next, basically.
So I think we should. So let's go ahead and call it. Yeah. Next episode of the Archive Podcast, we are going to talk about our individual journeys. So we've been hinting at it a lot. Yeah. But we're going to talk about our individual journeys of how we got into it. I know you've been in the game for a really long time. Mm-hmm. I am old and been in the game also. And so we're going to talk about our individual journeys and then maybe help like give some practical steps for people who like want to watch and just say, hey, listen, if you find yourself on this path or you're looking to get started, here's the tactical podcast. Like, do this next. Yeah. Yeah.
And I hope you guys, whoever's listening, might stick around. I think there'll be some weeks that you find very useful. We're dads, we're entrepreneurs, we're, creative people. We'll talk a little bit about everything. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about the struggles of business. We'll talk about the struggles of being a creative person, about being a dad and having a business. We'll kind of talk about whatever we want to talk about. There's like, we're not doing this for anybody else. No. Anybody else other than us.
Nope.
So if you stick around, you stick around. If you don't, hey, that's okay.
And we're calling it from day one. Yeah. The only sponsor that I am open to at this point is coffee sponsors.
Okay, yeah. Hit us up.
I already drank mine. All right, so we're gonna call it here?
I think so. I think you just get a good look. Like this look will not be the look you get for much longer.
right.
It's definitely, we love the mural, but we're ready to see the mural painted, and we're ready to see a studio.
Yeah.
So
And for all of my LaRue County people, we're not painting the gold standard mural, which is in the stairwell. These were added much, much, much later, but the one in the stairwell, fear not, we're not
Yeah.
touching that one. It's too awesome. All right, that's it.
yeah, until next podcast.
Until next podcast. This is The Archive.
Peace.